How's it going? I'm Dusted Pandemonic, and if you've ever wondered how to play Clusterfuck multiplayer, then you came to the right place. First things first, you need to get those most recent Clusterfuck files. The link to download all required files is found in the description. Any other links to download Clusterfuck files are unofficial, and I do not recommend downloading them from outside sources, especially from ones like ModDB. Next, make sure you have the most recent version of Zandronum, which at the time of this video is version 3.0. Now you need to download some type of server browsing program. The two recommended options are Doom Seeker and Doom Explorer, though I personally use Doom Explorer. Make sure these programs are set up to know where your Zandronum.exe file and other WADs are located. I usually put my WADs inside of a folder in the Zandronum folder. There are three options you have to play Clusterfuck multiplayer. First option is simple, just join an already existing server. Although you can't fine-tune your experience since, well, you're not the one hosting the server, it's an easy way to just jump in and have some fun. There are a fair selection of servers out there, most of them being hosted through TSPG. Most of these servers also have extra community add-ons as well. Although it is not my personal recommendation to play these add-ons, it is entirely your choice if you want this extra fan-made content. The second option is to host a server through TSPG. TSPG, also known as the Sentinel's Playground, is a free Zandronum server and file hosting service. In order to host a server, you need to create an account. Once you have an account and are logged in, you can click the drop-down arrow next to either Painkiller or Britsteel on the left sidebar. The difference between the two is that Painkiller servers are hosted in Canada, while Britsteel servers are hosted in the UK. Pick the one that suits your location the most to have a less laggy experience. When you click Host Server, a bunch of options will be available to you. The easiest way to host is to import an already existing configuration file, which can be found near the top of the page under Import Config. Some of these configs can be outdated though, so I will walk you through hosting a server entirely from scratch. First, you have your server name. All TSPG servers are hosted with a prefix, either being TSPG Painkiller or TSPG Britsteel. All you have to do is put in your own server name, something like Clusterfuck Good Morning Phobos, and then we'll put a 1 life the end of that. I swear my capitalization is really fucking off. Server version should be set to Zandronum 3.0. Don't change that. If it's something else, make it Zandronum 3.0. Connections and players determines how many people can be on your server at once. Connections is how many people are connected, while players is how many people who are actually playing. The maximum you can set to both these values is 64, however for this example I'll be setting it down to 12. The game mode should be cooperative. The recommended skill level should be 3, which is ultra violence. And lives, 0 means infinite lives, so like the normal co-op rules. But for this example, I will be setting it to 1, which emulates survival multiplayer. The IWAD can be whatever you want, as long as it is under the Doom subcategory. Since this server will be hosting Good Morning Phobos, I will set it to Doom 2. Skull tag data isn't really needed. Some community add-ons may require it, so it really depends. WADs is definitely the most tedious part because you have to insert every single file with its file name. But for convenience purposes, I have copied all of this to a text file, which I will just copy over right now. And hopefully there should be no errors. Optional WADs, if you have like any skin packs, any sound packs, anything that doesn't impact the gameplay, put them here if you really want to. It doesn't really matter if it's like a small file, but if it's like a big sound pack or a big music pack, you should definitely make it optional. Under maps, make sure the starting map is map 01. You shouldn't have to change the map list. Flags are a bit confusing to go over, so I'll try to cover this the best way that I can. Starting with DM flags, weapon stay should be on at all times. Basically imagine you got 2 players on a server. One of them picks up his weapon, and with this flag enabled, the other player on the server will also be able to pick up that weapon. Basically, all weapons placed by the map will stay on the ground. This does not work on weapons that are dropped by enemies. This is strictly only for weapons that are placed by the map. Mega Power-Ups respawn I would recommend to be turned off. This can make things pretty overpowered at times. If you want things like invulnerabilities, and if you're using the just ammo patch normal health pickups to respawn, then go right ahead, you can turn it on, but this can be a little bit overpowered. Items respawn should definitely be on, so that like things like ammo, in some cases like health and armor bonuses, respawn, so to compensate for having more players on a server. Disallow jump and disallow crouch, I usually enable these because I don't play many Z-Do mods. Most of the mods I play are Boom related, which Boom doesn't have jump or crouch, so I mean, it's your choice. Since we're playing Good Morning Phobos, I'll just enable both of those. Under DM Flags 2, I would definitely recommend turning on Drop Weapon for 1 life servers, so that whenever a player dies, they will drop the weapon that they were using before they died. However, if you're playing anything that's more than 1 life, or anything that's infinite lives, I wouldn't recommend this because you could easily farm weapons off of this, and I mean, imagine someone dropping, I don't know, a Nemesis BFG, okay, on a 2 life server. That'd be hell. So I also recommend turning on Allow BFG Free Aiming. Basically, the normal BFG, you'll be able to aim it up and down instead of it auto-aiming. I don't know why. I mean, TSPG enables it by default. I don't know why Xandrum doesn't enable it by default. It's a bit silly. Under ZA DM flags, you don't need shared keys because Complex already comes with its own shared keys script. We'll get to that in a bit. Disable ally player collisions should be on at all times, absolutely all times, so that you won't have like spawn telefragging and a whole bunch of other annoyances. So just turn it on. And then, let's see, disallow item dropping. Basically, if you want to not let players drop items for other players on the server, I would turn that off if you want to help other people out, I guess. Doesn't really matter, it's not that major of an option, but if you want to enable it, go right ahead. Compat flags and ZA compat flags should not need to be changed. And then for limits, don't bother with limits. Passwords are pretty simple. You can set a connect password, a join password, and an Archon password. Connect password simply makes people who are attempting to connect to the server required to enter a password, while join password is the same thing but for players joining the game. Archon, on the other hand, is a bit more unique. You can set an Archon password, and then whenever you enter the game, you can go into the console, type in send_password, and then the Archon password, and then you will be able to issue server console commands in game. It's really useful. So in some cases, like if you want to change the map, be sure to always include the Archon prefix for any commands. So if you wanted to change a map in the console, type Archon change map 01. Voting lets players control the server if enough people agree to it. The only voting types needed are map, change map, kick player, and force spectate, so any other ones, just disable them. Global voting, I guess I'd keep that on. Limit voting, I don't know, I don't mess with the voting options very much. I'll just keep it the way that it is, but disable the time limit voting. Basically, map, whenever you vote to change map, not actual change map, but changing the map, it restarts the server instance, and all players will be required to rejoin, and their inventories will not transfer over. So don't do this if you're planning to normally change a map. Change map, on the other hand, plays the intermission screen and transfers all players with their inventories to whatever that map was. It's basically like doing change map in the console. Whereas map is like doing idclev. Kick player, somebody just kicks a player. It's pretty self-explanatory. For spectate, say if you have an AFK player, you can vote and force to spectate, so that they won't be taking up an empty player space, I guess. Under other, make sure CD_shared keys 1 is always included. Remember when I said you don't need to use shared keys on ZADM flags? Well, this is why. Complex Doom comes with its own shared key script, so just make sure to always put in CD shared keys 1, so that whenever people pick up a key, it will be transferred to all other players in the server. You can also put in CD always drop 1 to make certain enemies, mainly just ones from Complex Doom itself, to always drop their weapons. So Demon Tech zombies will always drop their Demon Tech rifle. Cyber Noble will always drop an assault shotgun, stuff like that. If you want to disable the Toho bosses, add a dust_no_beefland1 and cf_no2who1. If you want stronger enemies to spawn in place of CAC demons, cyber demons, spider masterminds, barons, revenants, or arachnotrons, then add any of the combinations that you see on screen. If you want to make your experience even more difficult, add cf_true hard mode 1, which disables all forms of runes, legendary runes, true leg rune, all of that. Backpacks are a bit more interesting. Changing hemcf_arcpack to 0 disables all backpacks. 1 only lets normal backpack spawn, 2 for light backpacks, 3 for full backpacks, 4 for random backpacks. Whenever you have everything configured, you may now host your server. Due to Clusterfuck being a large mod, it can take a minute or two for the server to start up. Afterwards, just refresh your server browser, search for the server name, and join. The next option is quite a bit more complicated. Hosting your own server on your own hardware. I wouldn't recommend this unless you know what you're doing. When hosting through Doom Seeker or Doom Explorer, almost all of the same server hosting options are available to you, but are obviously presented in a different format. For the most part though, it should be easy enough to figure everything out. It should be similar to how to host a server on TSPG. It is simple enough to host your own server, but allowing the world to see your server is an entirely different story. Whenever you launch a server, make sure to put in sv_show launcher queries 1 in the server console. This will show whether or not people can see your server. If you see a bunch of launcher challenge from messages, then people can see your server. Now it's time to talk about port forwarding. Port forwarding is different for everyone, and it depends on what type of router you have. If your server browsing/hosting software gives you an option to use UPnP, try that first. In most cases, it will work just fine and people will be able to see your server. However, not all routers support UPnP, and in some cases, like my router, it claims to support UPnP, but for some reason, it just doesn't work. When it comes to Xangenum hosting, at least. So this means it is time for you to port forward. I can't do like a definitive guide of this, because all routers are different, so try finding a guide on how to, port forward on your router, and once you figure that out, do that for port 10666, which is the default port used in Xangenum hosting. The protocol should be TCP/UDP, and make sure to include your IPv4 address as well. Alas, after you have port forwarded, the world should now be able to see your server. If you have any additional questions, you are free to join the Clusterfuck Discord, which the link is provided in the description. I hope this was helpful to you, and I wish you a great time playing Clusterfuck multiplayer.